Welcome to the March monthly call. This is Misty Woods, and I'll be conducting today's call. This is the first time we are doing the webinar or call in Teams, so bear with me as we work through some learning curves throughout this. So let's get started. All right, so first let's go over today's agenda. We'll first talk about the administrative reviews and the procurement reviews, where we're at for the current school year. Then we'll go over some SSO reminders from the previous training that were had. Then we'll also go over some SFSP overview from the trainings that actually took place. One of them took place today. Then we'll go over some food service management company things that we talked about in that training. We'll have some reminders about health inspections that are going to be coming up due. We'll go over the most recent memos, and then we'll talk about some upcoming trainings and events, and then we'll finish off with talking about the Louisiana Tray of the Week. All right, so first up is the AR and PR. So we talked about this a few times before, but for this current school year, the 25-26 school year, there were 38 reviews that were scheduled. All of CNR's on-site portions of the review have been completed, and their contract does end on April 30th. So all of those CNR reviews will need to be closed by that date. So they're working hard to get all of you that were reviewed, your corrective action, everything back in and approved so that we can get those reviews closed. Here at the Department of Education, we have one more site review to complete, and that's being done this week. So after that, we'll be done with all of our site reviews. And then LDOE is planning to complete follow-up reviews for those SFAs that were determined high risk last school year. So if you were determined high risk in your 24-25 school year review, those follow-up reviews will take place between probably mid-March and sometime towards the beginning of May. This could be this school year. And you are in the process of being notified. So you should have received an email or you will be receiving an email about those follow-up reviews. So if you are unsure of what year you're going to receive an administrative review, you can always refer to our website and to look at that review schedule. We do update it every year. Sometimes we have changes where we have to take somebody off or add somebody on. So the most updated one is currently on our CNP website. We've talked about this before as well. We have been approved for a 5-year review cycle, and in doing that, we have a few things that are required once we are approved for a 5-year cycle. So we are required to conduct those follow-up reviews for any SFAs that are designated as high risk within 2 years of that administrative review. So although we have 2 years, we are trying to get those done as soon as possible. That's why we're doing some of those follow-up reviews, or actually we're trying to plan to do all of those follow-up reviews from last school year during this school year. When we do in that high risk scoring, some findings will automatically identify that SFA as high risk, and they get the maximum amount of points. Usually we see that with any type of repeat findings. Again, when we score in, if that module meets or exceeds that point threshold, then you are considered high risk. And we will be coming back within 2 years of your initial review to do that follow-up. So like I just talked about, we have that different modules that we use to score, and it's basically called a high risk assessment. So if for some reason you are determined high risk in a particular module, you're going to receive an administrative review preliminary closure letter. And then after that, you will receive an email with the attached high risk letter explaining what modules you are high risk in. So a little bit more information on the follow-up reviews. We received a lot of questions about this, and this is the first year that we're actually doing this, being that we are now in a 5-year cycle. So the follow-up reviews will only be conducted on the areas that are flagged for high risk. So the follow-up reviews will only be conducted at this time, will only be conducted by LDOE. And we're trying to use what we call a hybrid approach for these reviews, meaning that it may be on and off-site or a combination because it's going to be on a case by case basis. So staff may not have to go out on site for these follow-up reviews. It may just be more of a desk audit, but then there are some SFAs that will require us to go out on site to basically check more things like point of service issues, offer versus serve issues, things like that that we would have to observe on site would require us to go back out. One thing to note about repeat findings, the state agency does have the discretion to apply fiscal action for any repeat findings. We could or may consider withholding program payments in whole or in part to an SFA for any repeat findings that are not corrected when we come out there. This will also be on a case by case basis, though. So we're just going to have to evaluate the cause of that repeat finding and determine the extent of fiscal action if in fact it would be needed. All right, so let's go over a few slides that we went over on the seamless summer option. We just wanted to highlight some of the important ones. So for seamless summer, any school food authority that currently participates in NSLP or school breakfast is eligible to apply for the seamless summer option. So in this option, SFAs continue the same meal service claiming procedures, the same meal service rules that are used during the regular school year. Um, Meals are reimbursed at the free rate for lunch and breakfast, which are slightly lower than those summer food service program rates. Seamless Summer does have less paperwork, so it does make it easier for schools to feed children during that summer vacation period, and it allows you to provide free meals to those low income areas. So, what site types are available? It's pretty much the same as the summer food service program. You have open, restricted open, closed enrolled, camps, and migrants. And the site types may be offered at schools or non school facilities. So let's talk about the SSO waiver, or some people call it the application. It is submitted annually through the CNP website. The application is under that green school food service tab with the subheading Seamless Waiver. You're going to complete one application for each participating site, which when you compare it to the summer food service program, there's no sponsor level application when it comes to Seamless Summer. If possible, all of your applications should be submitted together in one single submission. And SSO due dates should be aligned with the summer food service program due dates. So if possible, please submit by mid-April. We will go over the summer feeding deadlines in the next few slides, and I'll kind of explain why we wanted to align. We do understand, though, that sometimes school districts may not have plans finalized by mid-April. So we just want you to submit as soon as possible. And the reason for that is we don't want a summer feeding sponsor to come in to your area and see that there's no congregant feeding in SSO and want to do that area for non-congregant. We want to make sure that these school systems get first priority to serve meals. So for SSO, you follow the same academic school year as your regular National School Lunch and Breakfast. So the academic school year is July 1st through June 30th. So if you're going to plan to operate beyond June 30th, you will need to submit a new SSO waiver for any sites that are operating past June 30th. So if you're planning to operate into July or August, you're going to have to do that on a separate application. So again, you're going to have to submit two different applications if you're going to be operating past June 30th. All right. For reimbursement for SSO, if the site normally receives severe need breakfast or the extra for menu cert, which everybody in Louisiana does have the menu certification, then these rates will continue during the SSO operations. During the months of May and June, you will receive the current school year reimbursement rates. And like we just talked about, if you're going to plan on operating past June, like so into July and into August, those months you're going to receive the new school year reimbursement rates when those are available. For meal pattern, SFAs must continue to offer the menus that are in compliance with the current school breakfast program and national school lunch program meal pattern requirements. This is another difference between SSO and SFSP. SFSP does provide some more flexibility with the meal pattern, but if you choose to do SSO, you have to say the same meal patterns as you are during the current school year. Many a time, sponsors choose to continue to offer the same menus because of that. Offer versus serve is still a requirement for high schools at lunch, and it is optional for all the grade levels at lunch and optional for all grade levels at breakfast. So offer versus serve is still a requirement in SSO. In regards to the meal service, there are designated meal periods, timeframes, I should say. So breakfast meal service must occur in the morning hours close to the beginning of the school day, and that's in federal regulations. And then lunch meal service must also occur between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, which is also in federal regulations. So again, it's like continuing on with the regular school year. In regards to counting and claiming, the point of service must be provided at each meal service. That is nothing that is new. Um, we've always done that, always will have to do that. SFAs that are participating in SSO often will utilize your same point of service method that you use during the school year, just because your staff is familiar with that and you know that it works for you. However, there is that option to utilize a manual process if you choose to. Some people use hash mark sheets or they use rosters. So you can continue to use your same point of service method, or you can switch to a manual process if necessary. And then because due to area eligibility, all children receive free meals in SSO. Some more information about the counting and claiming. The same claiming process is completed for SSO throughout the same way you do it throughout the whole academic school year. However, there's one slight difference. The SSO meal count is reported on a separate line item. So that SSO data will appear in a light green, a shaded light green, and it's displayed below your normal where you would put for breakfast and lunch. And so as you can see, there's a screenshot on this slide with the example how it's displayed on a claims page. So the part in green would be your data for SSO. Again, we kind of talked about the same claim deadlines apply for SSO claims as it is for your regular national school lunch and breakfast claims that are filed. So you should aim to submit claims by the 10th of the month following that claim period. However, the deadline to submit is the 60th calendar day following that claim period, but always aim for that 10th of the month following that claim period. So in regards to SSO administrative reviews, we as a state agency must conduct administrative reviews for all school food authorities that participate in Seamless Summer at least once during that 5-year review cycle. So obviously those SSO reviews will occur when the SSO is in operation. So it's during the summer months. During the on-site portion of the review, we will observe meal service at one or more of your sites. And USDA does require that SSO sponsors receive their review either the summer immediately preceding or the summer immediately following their scheduled administrative review. So if you received an administrative review last school year and did not like the current school year, I'm sorry, if you receive an administrative review this school year, you either would have received your review last summer or you're going to receive it this summer. So again, when you're up for a review, you're also up for an SSO review. So if you are planning to operate that seamless summer option and you did not attend the training last week, the slides and the recording have been posted on Louisiana Fit Kids. All right, so let's go over a few things about the summer food service program. So, as a SFA, in order to operate the summer feeding program, you must currently be in good standing for NSLP and school breakfast. SFAs can choose to participate in the traditional summer food service program. When they're operating in the summer food service program, SFA will be reimbursed at those summer feeding rates, which are higher than your national school lunch and school breakfast rates. Meals must meet component and portion size requirements, as SFAs have the option, because you can either utilize the national school lunch and school breakfast meal pattern, or you can use that summer food service program meal pattern. And as we talked about with SSO, summer feeding also has multiple site types, and the sites may be located in a variety of safe and supervised settings that are listed on this slide. So they have a lot of different site types and a lot of different places that you can offer summer feeding. So for SFSP, there are several things that require state agency approval. So these are the important things that you need to make sure that you get approval for. So when it comes to summer feeding, all sites must be approved prior to the start of operations. That is very important. You must receive prior approval before starting and operating your SFSP program. If an SFA is approved for congregant meal service, meals must be consumed on site. That is another important factor to take into. You have to make sure that if you are approved for congregant, that your meals are consumed on site. Any meals that are served away from those approved locations without state agency prior approval will be disallowed. And if the children take meals off site, then those meals cannot be claimed. SFAs must have approved non-congregant feeding site established and approved within the CNP system before you can start that non-congregant meal service to begin. So make sure that if you're planning to do non-congregant, that you have the approved sites and an approved application before your meal service begins. All right, so here are the deadline dates for SFSP. And these dates can be found on the memo SFSP 2602. Couple of things to note. So the SFA Summer Feeding Plan Survey needs to be completed by March 16th, and that's on the CNP website. For SFAs, the sponsor and congregate site applications are due by March 30th. For SFAs, the non-congregant site requests are due by April 13th, and the final non-congregant and other site applications are due by May 18th and greater than 14 days before operations. So that's why I said we're trying to align SSO with SFSP deadlines, because if they're submitting site requests by mid-April, if we have SSO applications, and by that time we can compare to make sure that we're not trying to feed at different locations or this, in the same area. We want to make sure that we give priority to the right people. If you have questions about summer feeding, on this slide is Toya Porter's phone number and email address. You can always email the general email address or call the general number, but here is her direct contact for summer feeding questions. We had these trainings already, but if you are interested in operating that SFSP program, either congregate and or non-congregate, you should have attended one of these trainings. And since you are SFA, you were told to attend that returning sponsor training. However, if you were not able to, those slides will be posted on Louisiana Fit Kids. All right, let's talk about food service management company for those SFAs that have that. So if you are an SFA that uses a food service management company, we had two different trainings that took place. We had a training on contracting with a food service management company, and we also had a training on contracted for vended meals. Both those trainings took place in January, and they have been posted on Louisiana Fit Kids website. So please, 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 if you are starting that process for food service management company, please refer back to those training slides for those to make sure you can have all those requirements and meet all those requirements for the 26-27 school year. In addition to those trainings, again, if you are an SFA that uses a food service management company, all those documents related to food service management companies are added to the website, and these are all the documents needed or necessary for the 26-27 school year. So this year, we have some hard submission deadlines when it comes to food service management companies. So, step one, those documents must be submitted to the state agency by March 31st of this school year for the upcoming school year. SFAs should plan accordingly to ensure that the submissions are added to their board agendas in time to meet the step one deadline if board approval is required prior to soliciting those RFPs for that food service management company. Then for step two, those documents must be submitted to the state agency by May 31st of the current school year for the upcoming school year. SFA should keep this in mind when they're planning proposal openings. Also keep in mind the amount of time that it's going to take the committee to properly evaluate those proposals. And considering all those factors will allow the SFA to work out an accurate and realistic timeline to meet those new deadlines. So for step three, those documents must be submitted within 10 days of award notification. And as soon as that SFA receives step two approval and notifies the food service management company of the award, the food service management company has 10 calendar days to submit that certificate of insurance and the performance bonds. And performance bonds are only required if the procurement exceeds $350,000. And then lastly, all agreement amendments must be submitted to the state agency by April 30th of the current school year for next school year. All right, let's talk a little bit about health inspections, some reminders about that. So, it is the responsibility of the school food authority to request two food safety inspections from their local sanitarian office and document your efforts. For those agencies that fail to obtain those two mandatory food safety inspections, we can request documentation from that sponsor to show that they have made every effort to comply with those federal requirements. You should show document of your request in writing for proper documentation of your efforts to obtain those inspections. And we'll talk about that real quickly. So a lot of times when we get to, the springtime and we have to submit these health inspections into the website, we have several people, saying, well, I didn't get one. I requested, but I didn't get it. I'm trying to submit my claims. It won't let me. So what happens when you requested it, but it wasn't conducted? You can still enter it into the CNP website. You would just select the school site like you would normally add a health inspection, and you would choose no whenever you're asked if you know the date of the inspection. And then for the reason for not inspecting, you would select the option inspection requested but not conducted. And then once saved, it will show that you have entered it in for that school site, and the system should allow you to submit the claim. So if and when you do receive an inspection, you can always log back in and edit those inspections for that school site. So don't let that prevent you from not entering in that health inspection onto the website. And the reason I bring this up now is because for your March claim for reimbursement, you're going to get a reminder that's going to appear prior to submitting the claim, asking if there are any current year health inspections that need reporting on the CNP website. And you must have a response. A response must be provided in there. And then when it comes time for you to submit your April claim, you will not be allowed to submit that claim beginning in April until that health inspection reporting has been done for each of your approved sites on your Schedule A. So if you haven't already, start making sure those health inspections are entered in, and that if not, you're making sure that each site has received two, and if they haven't, that you start contacting your local sanitarian and document your efforts whenever you're emailing. Always try to do it in writing, so save your emails and things like that for requesting those health inspections. All right, let's go over some memos. We have about 5 to go over today. So the first memo is SFS 2624, and this is about the January SNAP and TANF files that were loaded, into eScholar. Districts should resolve the near matches that are listed here. And one change is, and we talked about this before, but one change is now if you have any issues or you need assistance, you're going to be emailing Wongon. The next memo, SFS 2625, is about the January Medicaid free and the Medicaid reduced lunch files. Again, districts should resolve those neo matches that are listed here. And again, for assistance, you can email Wongon. All right, the next memo is a USDA memo. It's SPO2 2026, and it's called the Dietary Guidelines for American 2025 to 2030. It's Eat Real Food. So on January 7th of this year, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and USDA released the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2025 to 2030. While the release of these new guidelines did not immediately impact program requirements, the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, strongly encourages child nutrition program operators to familiarize themselves with the key recommendations and consider how these guidelines can be incorporated into these program meals and snacks to promote healthy outcomes and healthy families. So USDA is actively developing a proposed rule to update child nutrition program standards and meal requirements in the Code of Federal Regulations to align with the goals of these updated guidelines. USDA does look forward to receiving stakeholder feedback on these proposed changes to the program requirements through the rulemaking and the public comment process. So keynote here is until that final rule is implementing changes to meal requirements is complete. So until that final rule is complete, all operators should continue meeting current requirements while working towards providing the healthiest food options to program participants. So yes, this has been released, but there's actually no final rule as of yet, but they are actively working on developing it. The next memo was about the March training. So today we have the monthly call, and then next week we have the CEP population training. So those of you, actually that really involves everyone, population, make sure that we're working on that. Katie will be will be conducting that call on March 10th at 1 o'clock. So please make sure that you register on Louisiana Fit Kids for that training. All right, another USDA memo. This memo is SPO3 2026, and it's called Incorporating Local Beef into Child Nutrition Program Meals. So, USDA has recently published the USDA Plan to Fortify the American Beef Industry, which outlines actions to protect our domestic beef industry, including building demand for American beef alongside domestic supply. This memo includes a list that provides helpful resources and strategies for CNP operators and ranchers to incorporate local beef into school meals. The list does cover procurement, funding resources, food safety, and crediting resources, and provides technical assistant contacts from the farm to school program. So USDA does encourage CNP operators to utilize this list of resources to expand access to local beef for American students. The list is compiled into a helpful table of resources geared towards CNP operators and ranchers in the attachment that is attached to that memo. All right, let's talk about some additional trainings and events that are coming up. So, like I said previously, March 3rd today is the March monthly call. Next week will be the training. On March 10th will be the CEP population training. In April, we will have a monthly call on April 7th. We do understand that this may fall during some spring break or Easter breaks for SFAs. And in that case, if you're not able to attend, the reminder that those recording and slides will always be posted to Louisiana Fit Kid within a few days. And the reason why we chose to keep the monthly call on April 7th is because our next in-person state update is on April 22nd, and we usually do not have a monthly call when we have an in-person state update, but we have decided that for that state update, it will not be a traditional state update. It will be a basically turn into an administrative review and procurement review training. So we're going to heavily focus on preparing and different things that we talk about, current findings that we're seeing and how do you prepare and how do you correct those findings and things going forward. So on April 22nd, please mark your calendars that that state update, we will heavily focus on preparing for that administrative and procurement reviews. And then May 3rd, we will have our monthly call, or might be May 5th. I have May 3rd and May 5th on one and the other. So it's going to be the first Tuesday of the month, which would be May 5th. And then on May 12th, we will have the CEP elections training. So mark your calendar for those, and you will be able to register. Some are available on Louisiana Fit Kids right now, and others will be posted soon to register on Louisiana Fit Kids. Also mark your calendars. We do have an upcoming training, a farm to school procurement and geographic preference training will take place on Wednesday, March 25th at 1 o'clock. So this training will be conducted by the Louisiana Farm to School, the Seeds to Success program. They're going to present strategies for incorporating local food purchases and highlight the expansion of the geographic preference option. Some of the topics that are going to be covered are going to include how to define local, how to write specifications, and also where to find local food for purchase. So this is available to register for on Louisiana Fit Kids. So if you're interested in learning about farm to school procurement and more about geographic preference, please register for that training. All right, this week is actually National School Breakfast Week. It's March 2nd through the 6th. And this year's theme is the quest for school breakfast. So, National School Breakfast Week celebrates the importance of a nutritious school breakfast in fueling students for success. And this special observance during the first week of March celebrates the National School Breakfast Program in many ways. It gives kids to a great start every day. So if you need more information, refer to the School Nutrition Association website, and I have it linked on this slide for you if you need more information about it. Next up after that will be Louisiana School Lunch Week, and that is going to be March 16th through the 20th. And the theme is Magic of School Lunch, and this is a way to celebrate the magic in every school lunch, the power of nutrition, and the amazing professionals that make it happen. So SNAL has a Louisiana School Lunch Week media kit, and it includes letters to families, Louisiana School Lunch Week 2026 logos. It has printable flyers. It has ready-to-use social media graphics. It also has ready-to-use captions for social media. And for more information, you can refer to the SNAL website that I have linked on the slide. All right, we also have virtual manager training coming up. That is going to be June 22nd through June 24th. So the first 2 days on the 22nd and the 23rd of June will be 2 full days of training. And then on June 24th, the morning will be the training, and then in the afternoon will be the assessment. So to register for this training, you have to have the following things. So the participant must have their own email address. The participant must have a computer and reliable internet service during the training. That computer must also have both audio and video capability so that participants are able to see and hear and actually participate in the training. One thing to note here that the assessment will be computerized as this is a virtual training. Participants are required to be proctored by the CNP director or someone that they had designated. SFAs can wish to host the assessment in a computer lab on site. So for here, the link to that virtual site will be sent to each participant, SFA, and the proctor approximately a week before the training starts. So if this is something that you are interested in sending your staff to, or if you would like to attend it as well, please register on Louisiana Fit Kids. Again, this is for the virtual training that's going to happen in June. For the in-person manager training, that's going to be held July 6th through 8th. So this in-person training is held at Pennington, and there is a limit to this training. There is a 40-person limit. The registration does cost is a registration cost of $80. And currently it is not on Louisiana Fit Kids. It's anticipated to be open sometime in April. So if you want virtual, virtual is available. However, the in-person one should be open sometime in April to start registering. So again, that's more information to come, but please make sure that if you're planning to do in-person, that you keep checking the website, as this one is limited of 40 people. All right. Also, new director training. So if you are a new director, please save the date for our upcoming new director training. This training will actually be held July 21st and 22nd. And this will also be at Pennington. We are in the process of developing this training and is planning to work it out to where it is similar to that training by ICN that they offer. It's called that Introduction to School Nutrition Leadership. They do offer, I believe it's a 4-day or 3.5-day training hours. We're going to do a 2-day training and we're going to make it more specific to Louisiana. So this training will be specific for new directors with less than 2 years experience. However, we will allow a director with up to 5 years of experience to attend if there's space. So if we have enough space to accommodate more people, we will open it up to people who have less than 5 years, but we really want to target those ones that have less than 2 years of experience. Registration will be posted on Louisiana Fit Kids in the coming months, so please keep checking back for that, and we will again keep you up to date as to when those registration is available for that. And there will be a cost associated with that training as well. Okay, one more thing that we wanted to add when it comes to the trainings is that if you registered for a training and are now unable to attend, you can update or cancel your registration at any time. All you need to do is refer back to that email confirmation that you received when you registered for that training, and then you click on you either update or cancel that meeting registration, and it will take you back to Louisiana Fit Kids website where you will update or cancel your registration, and then you will receive another email confirmation of that update or cancellation. And this is really important when it comes to in-person trainings. For example, the manager training, if you had somebody that registered for the manager training and then later find out that they're not able to attend, we really would like you to go and cancel that registration so that it gives an opportunity for somebody else that may be in a waiting list or is unable to register because the class is full. That person would now be able to register, being that because you canceled yours. So please be mindful of that whenever you are registering. We understand things happen where you can't attend, and if you are able to let us know, please go ahead and cancel that registration if you're unable to attend. And then last thing we'll go over is the reminders about the Louisiana Tray of the Week. I've been keeping these on the monthly call every month because it apparently is a really good success. And Kathy wants me to remind everybody that just to continue sending all those photos so that you can be one of the trays of the week. So that Louisiana Tray of the Week campaign does continue through the end of the school year through May 15th. And it's a really good way to recognize and celebrate your staff by showcasing that quality and creativity and the appeal of that meal served to your students. It's also a way to boost that community pride and improve those public perception of your school meals. So you can send your photos to Kathy Carmichael or to Louisiana Fit Kids email address. Any school and districts across Louisiana can participate, and she selects trays each week, and they're featured on the Louisiana Fit Kids media platforms. So for those of you that are still not sure what you need to do to take part in the campaign, it's very simple. You just need to submit your tray photos to the Louisiana Fit Kids email or to Kathy Carmichael's email. Make sure your tray meets the USDA meal pattern requirements because they have to clearly show all your components that have been offered. Make sure you include a little short description of the menu items. Indicate what school served this meal. Provide the date of the meal service. And as a reminder, the food should be attractively plated on that tray and photographed correctly, which we'll go over on the next slide. And also the tray must be an accurate representation of what your students can select or have selected. And here are some tips when photographing your tray. So you don't want to be too close, you don't want to be too high, you just want to be right at that perfect angle so that it really shows a good representation of your plate. All right, with that, I will open it up for questions. And again, bear with me as this is a new platform that we're using. I will open up the chat and see if there are any questions. So we do have a question about in April when we have our administrative review training, if we will know what company will be approved for to do the ARs. At this point, it's all in the bidding process and the approval process of the things that have been awarded. It hasn't been awarded yet, so I don't know by April if we will or not. I know it has to go through Bessie and all of that to be approved. I will say this. Our goal for next school year is that LDOE will be conducting 50% of the administrative and procurement reviews. Right now, I believe we have 33 on the schedule for next year. So we would do half of those, approximately 50% of the reviews. So, and again, we don't have that schedule yet to see who's doing what reviews, whether it be a contractor or will it be us. We haven't sat down and done that, but that is the goal, is that we will conduct half of the reviews next year. All right, at this time, I am not seeing any questions or any more questions in the chat. So with that, I will go ahead and end today's call. But as always, you can send any questions to us at the general email, childnutritionprograms@la.gov, or you can give us a call at 225-342-9661. So thank you for attending today's call, and these slides will be posted to Louisiana Fit Kids.